The game of the weekend in the Premier League. If we can keep this title race going to the end, it would be interesting, but Newcastle United fans will want to have a say about that as they push for that Champions League spot. Newcastle United at home against Arsenal. This is a cracker, especially after last season. You'll remember when Arsenal had an initial wobble, dropped points against Southampton, then went and played Newcastle, and it all blew up in their face. I don't want that to happen, but that does sound familiar, doesn't it? Let's talk about the Chelsea game. Let's keep it light and positive for Arsenal fans. What did we learn from that cracking victory for Arsenal against Chelsea, Nubaid?
I wanted to sit there and go Arsenal are back, but Chelsea were dreadful. Chelsea were so poor that
That's the question, isn't it? That's a good point. Like, were Arsenal better, good?
I think that they definitely... There were certain features in their game that had improved from the previous four, for sure. Jorginho coming in gave them more balance. They kept the ball much better because I think Partey's been quite wasteful in possession. Even when he came on, he was wasteful and still making some rash choices. And then also no Rob Holding. Kiwar came in, who allowed him to play 10 yards further at the pitch, which is what they like to do, to squeeze the pitch. Brilliant. And they had 13 shots inside the box. Loads of good stuff. The problem for me was you're playing against Chelsea. One of those goals, Enzo Fernandez steps over the ball and Odegaard puts it into the top corner. Like there's certain things happening in that game where I was just going... You know, Cesc Fabregas said after the game, they said they have a saying in Spain that you throw olives on a table and wherever it lands, that's how you play football. That's basically what happened with the Chelsea-Arsenal game.
Right.
And I felt like Arsenal were did what they've done all season, but there were still signs that they're a little bit leaky at the back. Chelsea had 2 or 3 really good opportunities where they were wasteful. And that worries me when it comes to Newcastle because they've not been wasteful. Actually, the last sort of 6 game weeks, Newcastle have suddenly become really, really good in and around the penalty area. So, what did we learn? Arsenal are still a good team, by the way. Chelsea are just a really, really bad side.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the thing for me was that what we have to remember about, especially that Man City game, was the most incredible part of Man City's performance was the press. And Arsenal couldn't breathe. They couldn't get out. Chelsea sort of laid back and went, come on then. Like, it was so easy for them to move up the pitch. Then that allows you to start well. You then get yourself that first goal. And this is a great Arsenal side. But this is a massive test for them. And Newcastle look fantastic, don't they, Toni?
Well, this is a massive game because it takes me back to when Arsenal played Newcastle at the Emirates. And Newcastle were there to just frustrate them. But now this is a much better Newcastle side. This is a Newcastle side that we all kind of think... These guys are going to be in the Champions League next season. And then they've scored 13 goals in their past 7 days, right? They've been demolishing teams. They demolished Spurs, they demolished Everton, and they looked good against Southampton as well. So I'm looking at this game and I'm thinking, Newcastle not going to be there to frustrate Arsenal. They're going to be there to go at them.
You think they're going to have a go? Do you think it'll be similar to that Man City game at the start of the season where you're kind of wondering how they were going to come up against it? They had a real go. Do you think it'll be like that?
100%. At St. James's Park as well, there's no reason not to. I feel like with the fans behind their back, Newcastle, with the football they're playing right now, they're going to have a go at Arsenal. And Arsenal will need to come there knowing they have to be perfect and get not just a draw, a win, which is going to be a massive thing to do. And I don't think they're going to be able to do it, in all honesty.
I mean, I've said it numerous times when we obviously previewing games with Newcastle, that, you know, the crowd are just really feeling it this year as well. Like, I spoke to a Newcastle fan recently about the sort of just the moment that they're in, right? And they're just really enjoying it because they didn't expect this. And I think next season they will kind of expect this. And so they're trying to sort of enjoy this sort of like summer romance where there's no pressure until next season. But of course they've got to get over the line as well. And the last few games, you know, so many goals. 13 goals in the last 4 games. 4 different scorers in that. 13 goals in the last week. When it comes to that midfield battle, Newcastle have been pretty set in what's their best 3. One big talking point, which I just never expected to ask, really, would be Jorginho or Partey. His pass accuracy is 89% in that game against Chelsea. Partey had a bit of a wobble himself. This is a huge game. Which one do you go for?
I mean, as we said, Newcastle will go for it. They destroyed Tottenham and United, and that was because in the midfield, they remind me of like a little baby Liverpool, where they've got 3 midfielders who work their socks off and make the game really difficult. And Jorginho, when he's pressed, is not a lovely midfielder to watch because he isn't the most mobile, and you need players around him creating spaces so he can keep the game ticking. I'd be tempted to start both. I felt when they watched when it was I think it was a City game where they were just dominated in midfield, even though they tried to tuck Zinchenko inside. I would actually switch Zinchenko out for Toni, so you don't have that issue on the right side, because Newcastle create a lot of their goals from that side. Bring in Partey and Jorginho, and probably leave Xhaka out for this one, who I think actually picked up an injury at the end of the game against Chelsea, and start Odegaard and try and dominate the ball, because Newcastle will work their socks off. The crowd will be behind them. It'll be a horrible atmosphere to play in. The last thing you want to do is bring in players who are going to allow Newcastle to let the game be gung-ho. Just try and calm the atmosphere down. Don't get sucked into it, which is exactly what Arsenal have been doing recently, with Partey making mistakes and then Zinchenko with his huddles and everything else. I'd be tempted to go with both, to be honest.
Would that almost be a sort of a sign of weakness to change your formation when you've been as strong as you've been? Because Ben White can not play the exact same role, but he can step into that position to create that box that they have all season.
I think when it comes to football, there's weakness and there's adaptability, and there's nothing wrong with being adaptable to your...
But don't you have to be adaptable all season long? When Man City change it and change it and change it and change it and change it, you go, oh, they changed it. With Arsenal, they haven't done that.
No, they haven't. But I don't...
That's why they're in the situation they're in now, right?
Yeah.
What is that situation? I think that's a good situation.
Yeah, they're in a great situation right now. But if they want to go that one step further and get to the title,
you've got to be brave enough to make
change. You have to be brave enough to make changes. Which I've watched Liverpool and Klopp teams refuse to make changes when changes had to be made, and then pay the price later. I think you take on the Newcastle side here in this lovely position where teams don't take them very seriously and don't give them enough respect, and they can just be excellent and carry on going and doing their thing. You go up against Newcastle and you start Partey and Jorginho, I think it also changes their sort of perspective. They're going, oh, actually, they're giving us a lot more respect than let's just go and blast Newcastle away because this is our title charge. I think that changes the sort of frame of mind of everyone.
I disagree in terms of making that change, because I think, again, even regardless of the press, and Newcastle I think are up there defensively, obviously the numbers speak for themselves. If you're Jorginho and you close your eyes and you've got the ball and you go, where are my players? I think the way that Arsenal have played, I think one of the best things about them is that they absolutely know where everyone is all the time. And if you make one little tweak to that picture slows you down by half a second. And I think Jorginho and Arsenal are surely good enough to still make it out of that. Jorginho is generally, I get you, is not mobile, but he is press proof to a point in terms of, as long as he's got those options, which Arsenal in terms of their movement constantly have. And I think in terms of control comes from having answers to get out of those kind of moments, to quiet down that crowd. I think you've got to play, if Xhaka's available, I think you've got to keep playing those players. You saw what Xhaka brings in terms of his assists for Odegaard and the goals he
I only
brings.
said drop Xhaka so I could hear you give Xhaka loads of
I get what you're saying. It's just, how do you want to quieten them, and how do you want to allow yourselves to thrive? And in a away game against Newcastle, it is on a knife edge. I don't think it's silly what you're saying. I just think I would go, we're Arsenal, we've been brilliant, let's be us and go from there.
Yeah, I totally agree, because I feel like if you decided to play Partey and Jorginho together, I feel like that's going for too much control. And I don't think you're going to get that at St James's Park. Even I don't expect St James's Park to allow their team to just sit back and counter Arsenal. I feel like Newcastle have shown previously they're a good enough team to do that. So I feel like they have to go with Thomas Partey. I feel like Thomas Partey gives them some sense of control, but he also tackles as well. He averages 2.3 tackles per 90 this season, so you kind of need that, especially going up in a midfield against Bruno Guimaraes, Joe Linton and Joe Willock as well, who's going to be on a revenge tour going up against his old team. So I really feel like you have to get that level of dominance, but at the same time that level of combativeness in the midfield as well. And unfortunately, Jorginho doesn't bring you that. Yeah. Jorginho is that kind of midfielder when you're fully going up against a low block. This team's going to sit back and I need someone on the ball constantly to pick out the pockets. Thomas Partey can do that as well, but he can also be combative in the midfield as well, especially going up against midfield. As you said, baby Liverpool, right? If you're going up against baby Liverpool, you really want to have a midfielder like Thomas Partey, and I feel like Thomas Partey has to start this game.
Yeah, I think Arteta's decision is Thomas Partey my guy and that's why we gave him a rest? Or has Jorginho been so good in this game that, okay, you've got the shirt, so to speak. I also think the final thing with that is that as much as having protection, you want to be able to play through. And so sometimes you've got to be brave enough to have that player a little bit higher up. One key area, I think, and one area which Newcastle, I think, have got the marker on Arsenal, is the striker position. Gabriel Jesus, I think, does what he does. And I think over time, that kind of idea that he is that out-and-out finisher is slowly sort of bleeding itself out. But Alexander Isak and Callum Wilson are just absolutely perfect for Eddie Howe right now. And if they get a chance, these two, they're going to take them, aren't they?
Oh, they're both chipping with goals. They've got 25 goals between them, which if you said that at the start of the season...
Such a dangerous team right now, aren't they?
Yeah, and also, if you think about how Newcastle started the season, they were more pragmatic. I think now they've actually gone... We've actually figured this part out. Now we've got two guys who can go and score goals for us, and they are absolutely deadly. And they've got this lovely thing going on at the moment where he starts one and brings the other one on. Yeah. And the opposition team's going,
little competition, isn't it?
Oh man, we dealt with one. We've got the other one coming now the other way. And Isak is, I think, Callum Wilson's your 9. Like, he'll play on the last man and he'll grab a goal from poking it in from 6 yards out. Alexander Isak's really difficult to come up against. He's got every bit of quality to be that, like, and I said it a long time ago, he's got the Thierry Henry feel around him. He's not at that level, of course, but when he picks the ball up, defenders just going, oh, I don't fancy this, because he's big, he's strong, he's physical, he's good with both feet, he can take players on. He's got 7.29 XG this season, 10 goals, so he's outperforming his XG, which tells you the kid's got levels still to grow as well.
Yeah.
And I think Arsenal have a big problem, because on the other end you've got Gabriel Jesus, who's just, for me anyway, it's just so wasteful. I love so much about him, but the last 5 games when Arsenal have been desperate for him to put the ball in the back of the net, he scored the one against Chelsea, which was virtually a tap-in. You're screaming, oh, fella, we really need you to score one of these. They're going to be in that situation when they go to St James Park.
And yeah, with Jesus, it's kind of like he's going, like, which is great, which is really, really useful. But you kind of then want to sort of swap his brain with Nketiah. And right at the end, and give him that kind of composure. I agree with you. So incredibly dangerous game for Arsenal. They've got to be perfect, as we said at the start of the video. They have to win, right? What's going to happen, Tony?
This has a draw written all over it. I feel like I'm going to be a football romanticist, and I'm going to say, you know what, a 3-3 draw for the neutral. I feel like it's going to be a great. I feel like it's going to be a great game of football, because, as we saying, this Newcastle team, they're not pragmatic anymore. As Nubaid just said, they've sorted out their defense, and now they're looking to go at teams, and going up against a good Arsenal side at St James's Park in the form they're in, they're going to get some goals. And Arsenal are a good enough team. I feel like Arsenal are still a better footballing team than Newcastle. I feel like they're the second best footballing team in the league this season. So they're going to get their goals even. I just think they're going to cancel each other out. So
they drew 0-0. So you're feeling a bit of St James's intoxication here.
Yeah. I feel like St James is going to be behind it. It's going to be a massive. If it's during the night as well, then it's all over for Arsenal. But I feel like it's going to be a 3-3 draw.
A 3-3 draw, belter. Nubaid, what are you saying?
Arsenal have to win, man. Arteta's got to find a way. And I just told him what the way is. He ain't going to listen, though. I'm going to go 2-2. I cannot see Arsenal winning this game. Yeah. I'm sorry, man. I want Arsenal to win, but I don't see it.
I previously said a draw. And I wouldn't be surprised. One more week of this title race. Come on. Arsenal with a 2-1 victory. What are you guys saying? Let us know in the comments down below.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.